Exclamation, everybody, and welcome back to Cube Ramblings. It is, for me, Saturday night, February the 28th, 2015. We're wrapping up the month of February, and I have completely forgotten to actually record a monthly update, so we won't actually have a monthly update for this month. I just realized today I was going to record it today and render it, and then I realized, it's already the end of the month. I don't have any more days in the month to make it a February update, so we'll just skip it and we'll do the one for March, hopefully, because I've been so busy. Everything changing, everything's different, and at the same time, it's all the same. Everything changes but stays the same all the time. And I am, as far as other things going here, I am scratching my head a bit. I'm looking at all the RSS feeds, and for some reason or another, the last couple months, like at least 4 out of 5 sites per week have been talking about these Nintendo Amiibo things. They're like basically statues of Nintendo characters. And there's one now that's like a gold-plated Mario thingamajigger. And I still don't care. I didn't care before. I still don't care now. It's just getting a little bit annoying. Like every time I look on every time I look on my RSS feeds, like Amiibo this, Amiibo that, Amiibo this, Amiibo that. I'm like, well, I understand. I understand that we're nerds. And part of the definition of being a nerd is that you are very passionate about something relatively small in the grand scale of things, and you're so passionate about it, you want others to be as passionate as you, and you want others to like what you like, and so you talk about it even when it's not appropriate to do so. But geez Louise already. Can we have an Amiibo free month for a little while? Just I think we're all Amiibo'd out, as far as those of us who keep up on RSS feeds and news of gaming culture and so on and so forth. But having said that, I'm about to geek out a little bit here. We had some sad news this week. Apparently on Friday, Leonard Nimoy died. He was 83. I believe he died of. I believe he had some heart conditions. I don't remember the exact medical term for it. It was something that was related to heart disease, chronic artery blockage or whatever it was that he actually died of. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, and I might invariably be mistaken because I'm not necessarily doctor of the stars here. But if I'm not mistaken, he's had that condition for a while, and I think that might have been part of the reason why he looked kind of really old and decrepit. Granted, the guy was 83 years old, but still, he looked pretty worse for the wear in the latest, Star Trek reboot movies. In my humble opinion, I mean, he I compare him to Bill Shatner. And Bill Shatner they're the same age. They're only, I believe, if I read correctly, 4 days apart. William Shatner's only 4 days older than Leonard Nimoy. And I would say he's got the better end of that deal, because Bill Shatner actually still looks pretty good, for his age. But at least in the face anyway. But that said, I've said all that. It is a blow. You never want to see your old childhood, I guess heroes, or maybe not heroes, but childhood actors that you watched as a kid that were really good in some iconic roles. You don't really want them to shuffle off the mortal coil, even though it's inevitable. So it's been interesting. I found out about that on Friday. It was kind of very sad news. But it was a, he had very, very pivotal role for me as, as a Star Trek fan who, who's played Spock on the original Star Trek, played Spock in the movies as well, reprised his role, so on and so forth. It was really his defining role. He had plenty of roles, both as a producer as a director, and as as an actor and musician, even apparently. But that's the one that most people I think point to and look at, and it got me thinking about like the roles of sort of the alien characters in Star Trek, and I feel like as my own personal thing, and I'll get to games in a little bit. I just sort of want to get my thoughts out about sci-fi and stuff here, but my feeling about Star Trek in particular is that the aliens, I think Star Trek was at its best when the aliens were sort of commenting on humanity. And honestly, that's really the role that the aliens played in Star Trek. And in fact, it's kind of a criticism of a lot of sci-fi that alien races tend to be very one-dimensional. They tend to be, just some aspect of humanity just taken to the next level, taken to 11, cranked to 11. The Klingons are sort of the imperial, the warriors, the death before dishonor stuff, taken to 11, and the Romulans are like the spies and the clandestine operators of the constantly manipulating things from behind the scenes, the Illuminati, if you will, of the Star Trek world. And the Ferengi were the ones completely and totally capitalistic, and they just wanted money. Money was the thing that drove them. It was their passion, the thing that they all roads led to. And Cardassians were sort of somewhere in the middle. They were in the middle between the Klingons and the Ferengi, somewhere in there. They were the sort of the Overwatch, if you will. This is what happens when when the military runs things, or something like that. Some kind of reflection on that, and various other races along the way. And though it would be nice to see an alien race that was well fleshed out to the point where they weren't just one dimensional, it does sort of remove some of their spice, I'd say, as far as storytelling goes, if you do that, because the one nice thing that they do, and it's the one thing that Spock did a lot, it's the one thing that Data, from Star Trek: The Next Generation did a lot. There's various other examples in like Deep Space Nine with Quark talking about humans, particularly during I think the episode was the Siege of AR 552 or something like that, where he was talking about how humans, when they're under pressure and they're constantly deprived of sleep and creature comforts, become pretty damn ruthless and unruly, and various other alien races along the way. They were there sort of as a reflection, right? They were there to be able to comment on the things that they were seeing from a sort of dispassionate point of view. And in particular, Spock and Data were the ones that did that the most, because they were very, very logical beings, right? Everything was, in many respects, kind of black and white in their perspectives. There was the logical way of doing things, and then the illogical way of doing things. And it, as a storytelling thing, it really helped out to as a way to sort of shine a mirror on the things that the humans were doing, and whether or not it was kind of morally right or morally gray, or so on and so forth. And from that perspective, I think a lot of people who are big fans of that, I think, really gravitate towards those two characters the most. I don't think it's any accident that those two characters are probably the most fleshed out characters in Star Trek, I would say, going out on a limb a bit there, because of that, because they're versatile in what they can be used for. They're the measuring stick by which humanity can be judged from a completely different perspective and still sound like it's not a self-reflection thing. It's more of a an actual viewpoint from a different perspective, even though it's in large part it is just a reflection. So from that perspective, I think the character of Spock, and for me particularly the character of Data, were very, very iconic, very important in my development. Growing up, the very, people that I characters that I sort of looked up to, as a way of, maybe not as something to aspire to, but as a way to sort of ground decisions and various other things in reality. I particularly, I keep a little statue of Data, a little figurine of his at my workplace. Wherever I carry him from one job to the next, as sort of a good luck charm. It's more of a I guess a superstition thing than anything else, but really it's a way for me to remember to always kind of take a different perspective on things. It's really my reminder of keeping that around. Is sometimes I'm very blessed with being able to work in having a career that I really enjoy. Writing code is something that I just have a passion for. The downfall of that is because you can get so passionate about things, you can tend to make decisions and say things in the heat of a moment that are not very good from a morale perspective, or for otherwise, from a just decisions that are born out of that passion, instead of born out of the the logic and whether or not this makes the most sense to do. And having that, having Data around in my cubicle reminds me that sometimes it's good to take a step back and just kind of get another fresh perspective. Try to look at the other side of the fence. When someone proposes something that is very weird and crazy, rather than just saying you're wrong, that's weird and crazy, ask a lot of questions. Find out where they're coming from. Maybe they're seeing something that you're not seeing, or maybe they have an idea that you don't have, so on and so forth, and just try to figure out what angle they're coming at. And I feel like those two characters in Star Trek were very instrumental for me growing up, as trying to drive that point home. And the only other one I would point out would be Picard, because it's funny, there are like books out there for business people that I've read that go into details that why Picard was like the best leader, or why Picard was such a great leader, and a lot of it has to do with just being able to take suggestions and make your people part of the solution rather than part of the problem, and blah 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 blah, all that stuff. But still, I mean, that's when you're when I talk about the business world, I think in terms of Picard, right? Like what's good for the team, and what's the make sure that the software that you're producing is as good as everybody can make it, not just as good as you can make it, that kind of thing. But when I think about normal, life decisions and things of that nature, and the various things that come up along the way, I kind of think of more of the data slash, Spock angle on things, where you just sort of take a step back sometimes and just look at look at what's going on, and look what's driving your decisions, and whether or not that's the right thing to be doing. But yeah, there was a lot of videos, a lot of clips were put together for the in memoriam or in memoriam for Leonard Nimoy and the Spock character in particular. There's a little indie critic that I've watched a bunch of his videos of, called SF Debris, and he used to have a lot of videos on YouTube, but I think he ended up not doing anything more on YouTube because he got fed up with all the Content ID stuff, because he's getting a lot of matches on it, because he was using clips in proper use of fair use for doing reviews of like old Star Trek TV shows and various other sci-fi shows. And then I think he moved over to another service, which I think it's Blip TV or something. And he's over there now. And it's sort of I was mentioning this in the live stream on Friday. It's sort of like a TV tropes to me. Like when I click on one of his videos and start watching, I'll end up watching a ton of his videos for hours on end, and it won't just stop with the one video. But basically he goes through and does a lot of, reviews on those episodes, and what went right, what was good, what was bad, so on and so forth. But he threw together a nice little 3 to 4 minute clip, with a bunch of clips for Spock and just, that character and it's his progression and various other situations he was in, various quotes that he made. Put some music to it. It was very, very touching, very nice little tribute. So if you can find that, that's I stumbled across it on our Star Trek on Reddit, but I'm sure you'll be able to find it if you look for it. But yeah, I just wanted to touch on that because I feel remiss if I didn't, since I am a big sci-fi fan, and also it sort of prompted me. I watched that. I watched a couple clips of that, and then I started remembering some other things that, how YouTube gives you other suggested videos. And I went back today and I was watching some of Farscape. I was watching the Peacekeeper Wars. That's actually in its full glory on YouTube by various nefarious people. But so it's just the rabbit hole was open today. I was going deep today, but various things of that nature as far as sci-fi goes. So it's unfortunate we've lost another one. I believe so that brings the total to a couple now, right? It's James Doohan we lost a while ago. DeForest Kelley as well. He played James Doohan played Scotty, and DeForest Kelley played Bones. I think they are both gone now. Spock is now gone. Leonard Nimoy, and I think that's it so far as the regulars go. I'm pretty sure. There's other guest stars and whatnot that I think have long since expired, but those are the regular casts, and it reminds me a lot of Babylon 5 as well. There's a lot of cast members from Babylon 5 that are no longer with us. So it's it's getting to that point where we're losing some of the old sci-fi greats, which is, it's a rough time to be in, but it's at the same time, it's good that we still can go back to their bodies of work and see what they've done and watch their videos and see them on Netflix and so on and so forth. So it's good in that respect that we can always go back and we haven't lost anything. Nothing's been lost to time yet. That said, that was kind of a nice little segue there to, I was also watching, I think earlier in the week, there was a fan-made, a fan film of Power Rangers that took a very, very gritty, bloody version of Power Rangers, the original crew, and just sort of, put a whole load of grime on it. That has been running into lots of problems with being available on YouTube and Vimeo and so on and so forth. It was up for literally about a day, I would say, and then I missed it, and I found it, the second day, and it was everything was taken down. Like the YouTube had a copyright claim, the Vimeo had a DMCA claim on it. Couldn't watch it anywhere. I did eventually, I found a Polygon article that it was embedded in that had the Vimeo embed in it, and apparently the Vimeo embed was still working because I was able to finally watch it, and it was okay. I mean, it was a parody of fan films. It's like, oh, we're gonna take this nice cutesy concept and we're gonna make it all gritty and grimy, and oh, you used kids as weapons is one of the phrases in there. And they actually had some, recognizable actors doing it. Katie Sackhoff, of Battlestar Galactica fame, was playing the Pink Ranger. What was her character's name? Kelly, I think, the original Pink Ranger. She was playing her, and then they had They had James Vanderbeek in there as I believe he was playing Rocky, the second Red Ranger that from that series. It was passable. I mean, it was, as a parody, it was spot on as a parody. It was. And I watched the Not Safe for Work version at home, so I got to see the full blood and the one scene of nudity that was in it. But it was as a parody, it worked. It was the story. It's interesting to me to see. And maybe this is just my the way my brain works, but I always find it very fascinating when someone can take a story, take the concepts of it behind the story, and twist them slightly. I guess the Grimm fairy tales to a certain extent kind of fulfill that, although I've never really been. Some of the Grimm tales are a little bit too, I guess I kind of find them a little bit easy sometimes. It's like, hey, we made this really lovable, cute character into just a freaking monster. I was like, well, okay. I mean, you could kind of do that. There's the hard way to do that, and then there's the easy way to do that. And sometimes I feel like they took the easy route sometimes. But and for this one, I don't know. I just had that fascination where it's like you take something that is, very almost happy in what it's doing, and then turn it into this grime and very gritty thing. Like they took the concept of all these kids, powering up and saving the world, and they turned it into you've turned kids into weapons, and this was a really negative thing, and very traumatic for a kid and all that stuff. I'm like, well, okay, it was kind of the easy way out, but at the same time, it was, for some reason, I find it fascinating when you can take a concept like that and just twist it a little bit. Particularly, the one that really stands out in my mind is the 1970s Battlestar Galactica versus the Ron Moore remake of Battlestar Galactica that most people know from the 2000s. I forget exactly when that came out, but I think the 2000s is accurate. If you've seen both, like I have, the threads are very, the background is similar. There's similar concepts. You got the Cylons, you've got, fighter pilots, you've got colonies, you've got this war that was in sort of a Cold War that then became hot again. And then you had a bunch of refugees, the last refugees trying to just survive on what they could. And then the underlying sort of mythology underneath of that, the Lords of Kobol and all that stuff. And all that existed in the 79, or not 79, but the early 70s. I don't think it was 79. I think it was earlier than that. Late 70s, late 70s Battlestar Galactica. All those concepts were there, but they were done in a 70s style, which was like, oh, okay, well, it's either black or white. The enemies are very much an enemy. You can tell them right away. They twirl their mustaches. They're they're bad guys. And then the good guys are good guys. They're good through and through. They don't do anything weird or shady or anything like that. And when they do, they regret it entirely. And then there's always a resolution at the end of the episode. And then the next episode starts out from zero. And then they took those concepts, right? But then they gave them a twist. And they said, oh, what happens if the Cylons were, if there was a segment of Cylons that were more advanced, that were human-like, that you couldn't really tell weren't human until you really got to know them well, until they stabbed you in the back. What actually happened on some of those ships that they carried? Clearly there was a prison ship. There was a prison ship in the 70s series, but it was all very antiseptic, right? And, they had a prison ship on this one, on the new revised series, and it wasn't. It was very grimy. It was used quite a bit. They had the very first episode of the series, not the mini series that started it, that launched it, but the episode after that was, I think, 39 or something like that was the name of it. It was like 39 hours. So every 39 hours, they were being constantly attacked by the Cylons. Every time they would jump, the Cylons would find them and attack again. That was the kind of thing that you wouldn't have seen in the original series, because it just wasn't. It was too gritty. It was too dark for that. And you see, in the revised series, characters that Baltar was actually. In the original series, he was evil just through and through. He was just a conniving, conniver. He just stabbed everybody in the back just for power, for the idea that he could be in charge. And then you see in the revised series, it was more nuanced than that. He was, he did like power. He did lust for things, material wealth and other things. But some of that combined with some of his sort of womanizing behavior, caused him to, get into a situation where he was used as a pawn. And then you see him sort of going through most of the series trying to hide the fact that he ended up being the one that betrayed everybody. And that wasn't the case in the original series. In the original series, he came out like in the first episodes, like, "Haha, I gotcha. You're all done for." And then he was over on the Cylons, and that was it. It was just very, very cold and very calculating. But that wasn't the case in Reva. And I just like, I feel like, and I'm really rambling now, but I feel like that's kind of the thing that really gets me going is seeing some concept, some antiseptic concept, just twist it just a little bit, just enough to make it like a different story that is a little bit closer to, a little bit closer to a reality that is a little bit closer to a reality that we would understand today. It's still fiction, but it's fiction that sort of mimics more realistic concepts, right? It's like, in the real world there are, and I just hit my microphone, sorry about that. In the real world there are more shades of gray, right, than there tend to be in movies and television and stuff like that. So I guess I like seeing those shades of gray come through. hopefully more than 50 of them. But anyway, that was me rambling on. I wanted to mention as well, with the Leonard Nimoy passing, that Star Trek Online, the creators of Star Trek Online have said that they're going to, in their next maintenance update, they're going to put a monument, a memorial, to Leonard Nimoy and to Spock. I imagine they'll do it on Vulcan. There was I've heard that there was a very large gathering of people who played Star Trek Online. Just get on, on Friday and just all gather around the fountains and common areas of Vulcan in Star Trek Online and sort of pay tribute. Very, very cool. I have not been in Star Trek Online myself for ages. I keep feeling that urge to go back for a little bit, even though I'd really only go back for the space combat, and even then it's kind of grindy because it's an MMO through and through. But I've been tempted several times to just go back and just play a little bit, and maybe I will someday. Maybe I will just do a little live stream where I just go back into Star Trek Online with whatever characters I had. I don't even know what level I was, and just go back in there and just have a little romp in the hay for old time's sake. But that's very cool. I wanted to mention that in the same vein as mentioning the Spock stuff and Leonard Nimoy stuff. So a couple other things going on here. So I talked about the Power Rangers thing, and that was interesting to say the least, and Star Trek Online stuff. Also, another sort of crossover between games and movies or television, as the case may be. Telltale has announced their big announcement, which is that they are going to work on a new IP with Lionsgate, which is the movie company. They're going to have some sort of super show that they're coming up with. They haven't said what concept it is yet, but basically it's going to be some sort of crossover that takes place where you're going to have the Telltale game version of it, the interactive game, and then you'll have portions of it that are scripted that are actually done on TV. And so there'll be a TV sort of, drama, I guess. I don't know if it's going to be drama, comedy, I have no idea. It'll be like a TV drama thing, and then also a game that will do some of the crossovers in between the two with the storylines and everything else. They're not the first ones to do that. They are very... they're the first ones that deal directly with just interactive storytelling. So from that perspective, it's very exciting to hear. It's even more exciting, I think, to hear that it's going to be a completely new IP, from what I understand. It's not going to be anything that we've seen before. There was some speculation in one of the articles that, Lionsgate owns all these properties like the Hunger Games and Divergent and a few other things that were mentioned there. Honestly, I kind of hope that it's going to be a completely brand new IP, like they're saying. It sounds like it might be. Not that there would be anything particularly wrong with, say, a Hunger Games crossover thing, but yeah, I liked Hunger Games better when it was Running Man. Because I can't quote anything from a Hunger Games movie, but I can quote a lot of things from the Running Man movie, just because of Arnold. Sub-Zero now, Plane Zero. So many good things from that. That was, I guess my point there is that the Hunger Games was very, very serious, and the Running Man was very cheeseball, and I just kind of liked the cheeseball aspect of it and wish it stayed as the cheeseball aspect. But it's I from what I'm gathering, it sounds like it's going to be something completely new that we've never seen before, which I think is a good thing. That's not to say they won't at some point go, hey, we have this property and we want to do this stuff, but I think, up to this point, Telltale has done that, right? They've done licensing agreements. They've said, oh, we want to have a Game of Thrones thing, or we want to have a Wolf Among Us thing, which is a license from the comic books, and we want to have a license from the Walking Dead comic books. We want to do that, or so on and so forth, the Borderlands and all that stuff. I think, and it sounds like they're really keen on just doing something brand new, just developing something of their own. And I think that's the part that's got everybody sort of excited. I think the whole TV crossover with game thing is not, I mean, it's been done before. It's a gimmick. I don't think anybody really gives a damn about that. I think they care more about, is it going to be, since it's Telltale, is it going to be a really good game, a really good story that really takes advantage of the engine and the game that they have. Because right now a lot of things tend to be sort of kind of bolted on, right? Bolted onto a game engine and trying to force it into that pattern. And it would be kind of nice to see them try something where it's just like, hey, let's just do this. We're in charge of the engine. Let's make this thing be what it's got to be, based upon what the games are, and hopefully the game takes the precedence over the TV or drama of it, right? Because you want there still to be a very good game there, and I think you could have a very good game that drives the narrative the way it needs to be, and still have the drama on the side. So if you do it that way, I think if you try it the other way, it's probably not going to work out so well. Probably not. But that's my 2 cents on that. There's been, so we're in the run up right now to PAX East, which is coming up soonish, next week or two, I believe. And which, interesting little side note on that, Boston has had a ton of snow, like something like 8 feet of snow. They've been getting all the snow that's been missing, where I'm at and various other places. So hopefully, I'm sure everything's sort of back to normal now, but hopefully PAX East doesn't end up getting canceled because of weather, because they've been having some really crappy weather. But along those same lines, a lot of companies a lot of indie devs, and a lot of games are getting lined up and ready to go for PAX East and getting their reveals ready. And I just noticed that like Adult Swim Games announced something like 8 different games that they're going to show at PAX East, and they're all, from what I can tell, they're all Metroidvania games. That seems to be the primary focus of Adult Swim games. But every one of them has got like some slight difference to it that's kind of interesting. The one that actually drew me to it, that I found out, was got me onto the article in the first place, was that there's a game called Death's Gambit, and there's a bit of a theme here. There's a theme that's sort of running through, I think, a lot of the games that you're going to probably see it coming out of PAX East, and that is the crossovers between RPG games and platforming games or action games and Dark Souls. And on top of that, not only Dark Souls, but also like Shadow of the Colossus. And Death's Gambit is basically that. It's a Metroidvania, 2D platformer, RPG elements, light RPG elements, set in a world where you are basically you've been commissioned by death to take out these immortal creatures, and the immortal creatures are basically what you would expect from, say, a game like Shadow of the Colossus. They're these giant freaking creatures that you have to climb atop and find out their weaknesses and try to take them down. And in the same vein as that, it's got the it's like a 2D side scroller, doing all that. You're jumping around. It's also got sort of the Dark Souls portion of it, which is things are going to be very, very hard to accomplish. You're not going to be given any instructions on how to actually kill things. You're going to have to find it out the hard way, figure out what their weaknesses are, so on and so forth. So that seems to be a theme that I'm seeing through a lot of these things, is that idea that you're going to combine some of the Dark Souls elements where it's just balls hard and your hand isn't held at all, and combine that with the the side scrolling or combine it with the action, I'd say, just making some kind of action game. And it's there's an interesting little there was a video that came up on GameSpot. It looks like it's one of their weekly features or something like that, and they were talking about in that video how AAA games are being hampered by content now. And what they meant by that was, there is, we looked at, say, the Order 1886, right? Which I'll leave you a link to the Order 1886, to the Eurogamer article on, talking about that reviews it. But there was the big hullabaloo about how it's only a 5 to 7 hour game, and the story wasn't even that great. It was a lot of non-interactive, a lot of cutscenes with just QTEs. It was not very good from a hey, I really want to enjoy playing this thing. From what I understand, I haven't played it myself. I don't own a PS4, so I wouldn't be able to play it anyway. But it sort of brought up this whole debate, like, well, what is going wrong as far as AAA games go these days? Because we've seen a lot of AAA games just struggle. We've seen a lot succeed. Of course, it always comes back to bugs. Bugs have been a pretty big issue in 2014, and then now into the beginnings of 2015. But the argument they were making was that content was the thing that's really hampering it, because they're trying to very hard to not only get their players to see all the content right in the game. They're also trying to get a lot of content in there, which is very expensive, which is why AAA games tend to cost $60 a pop, regardless of how long they are, because they just take so much time to produce all that content, even though there's not a whole lot of engine optimization and stuff going on, or engine changes happening. And those things are all combining to make these sort of experiences that are more resemblant of, say, Hollywood blockbusters, and less resemblant of the old arcade days when the machine was just ridiculously hard because it wanted you to keep pumping quarters into it until you got good at it. And they sort of contrasted that with indie devs, saying that, look, the AAAs are looking to make things that are appealing to as wide an audience as possible because they need to make all their money back that they put out for it. And they're also making them pretty darn easy, which, I'll be honest, I don't really have a problem with. I don't mind having a game that's relatively easy. There's a lot of people that hate that. And I can see where they're coming from. Like, oh, I want to be challenged. I want to do this. I want to do that. But there are games like I'm playing through Republic Commando, and I get frustrated very easily. Like, it gets to a point like, I'm on easy mode and I'm, sucking sometimes. It's just, I get very frustrated where I'm like, I would really like to play this on normal, but I can't. It's just not, I just can't do it. I have to have Twitch reflexes that I don't have anymore in my advanced, slightly advanced age here. And it's just, I can't enjoy it as much as there was a time in the past when I'd sit there and just, grind against that damn game until I could get past the level. But now I lose interest very quickly. I have games in my library. I talk about Starlancer occasionally. I've thought on numerous occasions of making videos of Starlancer and putting them up on YouTube, but I have never beaten the game. I got all the way to the end, to the very end boss, and I couldn't do it. I just could not beat it. I played it 30, 40 times and I couldn't do it. Even on the easiest mode. And so I just said, I gave up on it. And I find myself doing that a lot with games now, where it's like, hey, if it gets even mildly challenging, I can't deal with it, and I just give up on it because I don't want to sit there and grind. I have such a limited time to play games that I can't sit there for 6 hours grinding on something because I want to make progress constantly. Whereas, when I was younger and I had more time to do things, I didn't mind it as much. Hey, I'm going to sit here for a couple hours and try to get through this, and yeah, I finally got through it, and you get that accomplishment of finally getting through it without, compromising the easy, without making it easier on yourself. But I don't have that patience anymore. I don't have that time anymore, and that's, I guess, I fall more into the casual section. And so, to me, the AAA games being a little bit easier is actually a boon, because, hey, I can actually go through and enjoy this game. I can sit down and know that I'm going to make progress every time I sit down. But I do see also the counter argument, which is, oh, well, this is now, they don't want you to miss out on all this content, so they're going to make it as easy as they can so you can't possibly miss out on anything, or you won't throw the game away before you finished it. You'll see everything that they wanted you to see. And it's an argument that isn't without merit, but I can also see the argument that they're making that, hey, indies are now, filling that space, right? They're saying, indie games are doing more of the arcade style stuff, where they're saying, we're not going to necessarily have too much of a story here, although there are plenty of indie games that have a very rich, immersive story. But there are plenty that don't. There are plenty that are just like, you know what? This is the game. There's a little bit of a thread here so that you can have some sort of story in your life, some sort of, thread that connects all the things up. But in the most part, it exists for you to have fun. It exists for you to just do things. And it does feel very much like that is the push anymore, right? And it seems like people are going more and more to indie games because they're getting more of that arcade experience out of it. And then I see what made me think about all this is that you see these games like Death's Gambit and a few others that I'll point out in a little bit that are all taking sort of the Dark Souls approach to things, where like, hey, we're just going to make this thing ridiculously hard, and you're going to hate yourself at the end of this, just trying to get through this in one piece. And on the one hand, I find that intriguing. On the other hand, I don't know if it's something that I would ever play. because if I look at something that's a little less like that, like Evil Quest, towards the end, Evil Quest does some really dick moves on you, where it's like, hey, you gotta fight, you just died, so you gotta fight 2 bosses now instead of just one. It's just like, oh man, come on, give me a break here or something. And forcing you even on PC to have save points that are very sparsely populated along the world, and you can't save anywhere except in certain areas. It's frustrating for me because I'm like, I would like to actually beat this. I would like to actually see what the ending of this is. But I can also see that there's a whole segment of people there that love that love learning how to do things better. And I don't mind a challenge as long as it feels like, and you might hear me say this a couple times, I don't mind a challenge as long as I feel like I can get better at it. If I'm in a racing game and I get, say, I run a track for the first time and I get 4th place, and the game requires me to get at least, 1st or 2nd place in order to advance. Well, if during the course of that race I felt like, oh yeah, okay, I see what I'm doing wrong here. I made this mistake here, I made that mistake there, but I feel like I can overcome those things, then it'll be a great game. If I feel like at the end of that race I'm like, man, I've tried this now and there's nothing, I can't think of what else I need to do better other than somehow get across this line before the time is up. And those are the games that end up really frustrating me when I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong or how to do it better. I still haven't finished Space Run, even though I've wanted to finish that one for ages and ages now, because I keep playing that same mission over and over and over again, and I cannot figure out what I'm doing wrong, other than dying, of course. But I can't figure out, like, there's no strategy, right? It's just like stuff is thrown at you, and you're doing your best to mitigate it, but you can't, for whatever reason, get better at it. It just doesn't feel like you have the power to get better at it. It's just a random thing that you manage to survive or not survive. At least in my mind, anyway. I know that's not really the case, but in my mind, that's what it feels like. And so so that ends up causing a ton of frustration for me, to the point where I end up putting it down and not coming back to it for months and months until I build up the energy to do it again. And so, on the one hand, I like, that we've got these games coming out that are a little bit more arcade, a little bit more difficult. But on the same side, I kind of like easier games. so I'm like, I'm somewhere in the middle here where I'm like, I don't know whether I'd like this or whether I wouldn't like this, whether this will be a cool thing or not. But that's Death's Gambit. That was one game that was announced that will be at PAX East for people to demo. Also, another Metroidvania called Traverser, which, if I'm not mistaken, Traverser was the sort of hide in the shadows kind of thing, even though it's a 2D game, I believe. I can't quite remember all the details there. I'm trying to pull it up a little bit, but can't quite remember all the details of it. But I think that's what it was, if I'm not mistaken. They also had, because I looked through some of the trailers, but I'm trying to remember all these trailers, and it's very hard after a while. They also announced Rise and Shine, which is another Metroidvania one. It's got more of a, I guess, more of a cartoonish look to it. It looks actually quite a bit like Awesome Nuts, almost, in the art style anyway. But it's you basically have some sort. You're a character in a world that is populated by video game characters, I believe. And you've got. I'm fairly certain that's what it is, unless I'm confusing that with one of these other ones, which is entirely possible. But I believe in this one you're sort of a character that's in a video game world, and you've got to use your gun to sort of restore these other characters back to their original games, or so on and so forth. I believe that's the case, and I believe it does it through some sort of bullet thing, where you've got all these weird bullets that you load up into your gun, and they do various things, and you have to sort of manage your ammo correctly. That's the impression I get. I don't know if that's the actual game or not. There's a store page already on Steam for that and everything else. I was watching some of the videos, but sometimes you can't really get a good feel for something just from a video. So that's what I got there. I got another one called Rain World, which I didn't even look at, to be honest with you, because it's just got it's got a picture of a giant white mouse on it. So I usually figure that's probably not the style that I want to deal with. Ghost Song, which actually caught my attention. That is, it's a sci-fi-ish game. You're basically going through, you're on another planet, and you're fighting ghosts of the previous inhabitants of that planet. So another little take on the genre there. Oblitus. Yeah, Oblitus. I don't know what that is. It's out right now on Steam. I remember looking at a video of it, but I don't remember exactly how it plays out. I have a feeling that was one of those ones that was like, hey, we're gonna throw enemies at you. It's sort of an open world. You're not really given a direction as to where to go. We're just gonna throw stuff at you, and you're gonna have to figure it out. I think it had some rogue-like elements in it, or roguelite elements in it. I'm not quite sure. Westerado is one that also I took a look at really quickly through the video that they offered there, and that one is I guess I was very attracted to it because it's got the Western theme going, but it's basically you're just a gunslinger, and it was more of an isometric or top-down view of it rather than a 2D flat-on. But you're going around and just sort of, there's a little bit of a story there, trying to solve a murder, I believe, and you're going around and just this little Western town, taking on quests and various other things. So I wanted to take a look at that, hopefully, once they eventually have something playable for the world and not just for PAX. And what else did they have? I believe they had 8 games that they announced. I don't think I have 8 on here. Yeah, Rain World, Ghost Song, Traverser, Ghost Song, Death's Gambit, Oblitus, Rise and Shine. I think we covered all those. Again, they're all very early. They're not even available yet for sale, except for Oblitus. That's available for sale right now. But I'm still on the fence of whether or not I'm going to buy it or not. I have to look at it again and see if it's up my alley or not. I'm still not quite sure yet. So I want to see what we've got there. And so that was all the things from Adult Swim Games. They seem to be on a Metroidvania kick, if not anything else. But they're getting themselves ready for the PAX East booth that they have, I assume, or I guess they'll be in the Indie Mega booth. Don't know, one way or the other. But along the same lines as sort of making things a little bit easier for noobs like me, I started to play a little bit of Heroes of the Storm. That's the word I was trying to use. That's the name. Playing a little bit of that, getting the hang of it. It is like sort of baby's first MOBA, which is good. Which is it's kind of stuff that I like. I like that. I like Awesome Knots. So I think I might have some fun with that soonish. But along those same lines, there was also an announcement about a game called Call of Champions. And I'm not going to give you a link to this because literally the articles on it say nothing because it was just a video and nothing much else. But Call of Champions is sort of billing itself as a 5-minute MOBA. In other words, people are thrown into an arena. There's no jungling or any of that stuff that goes on. It's just there's no item shop or anything like that. It's just everybody's in an arena. You got a 5-minute timer, and you must get to whatever the victory condition is within that 5 minutes. So it's billed more as a hey, I got some time to kill while I'm en route. While I'm on the train or something. I'm on the subway, trying to get to work or whatever. So I assume their primary focus is going to be on the tablet and mobile users, and then probably do PC as well. But I don't know how well that will sort of translate. Even I'm sort of looking at that going, 5-minute matches, that sounds kind of dull. As a guy who really does want shorter matches, which is why I want to try to do some more Heroes of the Storm, because I can jump in and do a couple matches at a time rather than having to plan my whole life around it like some League of Legends players have to do with various other things. But I wanted to have it on my list of things to sort of kind of keep in the back of my head in case it might be something that's interesting or not, an interesting concept. I'm not sure that the 5-minute thing will work too well, but it's a noble effort, so have to see. It's still, again, very, very early, so you can't really tell anything yet. These are all just short little blurbs that these companies, indie devs and whatnot, have put out saying, hey, this is what I'm working on right now. It's the obligatory, a big conference is coming up, let's let everybody know what's going on, kind of thing, which is fine. But you can't read much beyond it because there isn't much else out there publicly available to tell what's going on. And getting towards the end here, we're I figured I would sort of not spend too much time in the Lava Lands, even though it's been a while coming. I figured once you've seen most of it, once you've seen most of what it will throw at you as far as the things that it will generate, after that it gets kind of a little bit boring to look at. So we're going to keep on trucking. I've got Power 91. There is I purchased long time ago with the in the game from one of the merchants. I purchased a I think it was an armor piece or a weapons or something like that, that was power 100, and I got it from like one of the very early vendors. And I've never been able to get to that power level. I'm at level 196 here experience-wise, and I'm still not at power 100 yet. So I'm hoping that I can figure out what's going on there and figure out if I can get to power 100 as a ranger. And if so, I'll be able to finally use those formulas that I have that I haven't been able to use up to this point. So as far as, the background stuff as far as Cube World goes, I'm going to continue playing it. What I'm going to do is just keep on exploring, because it's a very cool game to sit down and just explore in. So keep exploring. The next milestone, like I said, is to try to get that power 100 stuff. Also very, very close to level 200. One of the other goals I set out for myself was to get to level 255, since that is the extent of an 8-bit unsigned int, which I'm sure the level counter on here it's probably just a regular integer, so you'll never hit the end of that, unless you go negatives. But that's my plan so far with Cube World. I've thought on numerous occasions, with Cube Ramblings anyway, that I would switch up the background video and just have it be either a random thing or be just like the background stuff that I do, in Minecraft or whatnot. While I'm sitting there grinding resources or something like that, put that in the background and have it, something to look at, or even select an entirely different game and use that as the background on a more consistent basis. But right now, I'm not going to change what is working for me and what I think is cool. I still enjoy the game of Cube World, so Cube Ramblings will continue to have video footage from Cube World in it. I just wanted to kind of point that out because I've moved out of Lava Lands here. I intended to do an even more exhaustive search of it, but like I said, it's getting kind of ponderous seeing the same thing over and over again. I was hoping before I found the Lava Lands that there would be actual lava in there, but it does not appear that that's actually exists in the game, so that's kind of unfortunate. I was hoping that the lakes would actually be lava lakes, but they weren't, so that's the thing. But anyway, I just wanted to point that out, since if you're glancing over at the video, you might say, hey, when did you get into a nice green grass biome? That is the reason. What else do we got going on here? I got a lot of news items here, and that I'm not going to get through. I had a feeling as I was putting these news items on here that I was not going to get a chance to get through all of them, and I probably should have stopped earlier, especially since I'm getting a bit tired right now, just a tiny bit. But we've got a little bit of gas in the tank, so let's use it. What else do we have here? So, there is a Baldur's Gate-like game that is in development and is very, very close. I'll link you to an article on Destructoid that talks about it. I don't know if I shouldn't say it's very, very close. It's something that's in production right now, or in development, I should say. Called Masquerada, Songs and Shadows. And it's sort of taking the old school, Baldur's Gate isometric view thing and bringing it back. You've got your pause time mechanics. It's an RPG through and through. You've got your pause time mechanics to issue orders. You've got there's an interesting, I guess. An interesting feature of it where you can I think this is the one. I might be confusing this with something else too, but I think this is the one where you can just you can have all your guys just have different abilities as you go. Like there's no as far as I know, class restrictions in it, so you can kind of make your characters the way you want. But don't quote me on that. I might be confusing that with something else. But it looks pretty interesting. I like it because it's basically you can pause the action, you can issue orders to your people. It's the RPG thing, but it's got a nice, bright art style to it. It's not all grimy and stuff like you're used to. Not all brown and kind of colorless in many cases. Or I mean, the contrast has been sucked out of the colors or whatever proper phrase is proper there. It just got very bright graphics. It looks pretty cool. Just like a cool world to romp around in. So you might want to put that on your radar as well. I'll leave you a link to the Destructoid article on it as well, as I said earlier. We have on here. So my brain is already starting to leave me a bit here. There's a game on here called There Came an Echo, and I do not remember. Let me see if I can refresh my memory here. Yes, this is the cool one. This is the one that I'm like, this has already been released. It actually was released on the 24th. And I'm like, I think I might want to buy this and take a look at it. But it's called There Came an Echo. It's a sci-fi game. Again, isometric, just like the one I was talking about earlier with what the hell is the name of it? I just had it. I was just talking about Masquerada. It's just like that with the isometric view, but it's got an interesting little mechanic to it where you do not necessarily control your people directly. You control them through voice commands. And it's got more of the tactician portion of it going in there, more, the tactical overview thing, sort of I guess kind of like a Rainbow Six-y thing, although I never played Rainbow Six, so I can't really tell you for sure if that's the case. But that's the first thing that came to mind. But basically, you plan out, your people are in these situations, you plan out where they're going to go, and you do it through voice commands. You say, okay, put a mark here, mark at Charlie's spots, and then, when I say mark, have everybody move to Charlie, so on and so forth. It's a really kind of neat concept. I don't know how that will work out on like a YouTube-ish setting, because technically speaking, you're going to be commentating a lot because you're going to be issuing those voice commands, but at the same time, you're going to want to actually say other things besides just voice commands. So I don't know how exactly that would work out, but I'm very curious as to whether or not this is actually a decent game or not. From what I understand, it's a fairly short game. It's like 4 hours or so, and it's the storyline is predictable. It's not necessarily bad. It's just you've seen things like it before, so it's not breaking any new territories. But it's sci-fi, and it's it's a sci-fi strategy game. So I'm like, maybe because it's got sci-fi on it. Normally not into the real-time strategy games I do, but I'm not usually into the just plain old strategy games. But you make it sci-fi, and I have to at least try it. That's the way my brain works all the time. But I think we've covered quite a bit for this episode. I actually have a few more minutes of footage here, but I don't think it's just me walking in one direction. It's nothing crazy. I don't run across a boss or anything along here. And I have a bunch of things on I still have a bunch of news articles on here. It's just that I am running low on the gas. I really am. It has been a stressful and exhausting week. It's been a good week, but stressful and exhausting. And I have not caught up on any of that sleep that I really need. I still have that fatigue all throughout my body right now. It doesn't help that it's now Sunday for me, but that's the thing. So I think I think that'll just about do it for this episode of Cube Ramblings. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching, and stay tuned for more things. We'll continue. We shall continue with the series. The series will continue. It will, I swear. And my channel. I haven't had any. I don't have any backlog left, so I am running a little bit behind as far as I'm actually running very behind as far as having videos ready to go, but hopefully still get at least one video out a day, and so on and so forth. So again, thank you very much for watching, everybody, and I will see you next Sunday.